ask if Sherry Washington and Michael Breeland would join us on the panel. And we're going to ask Michael if he would come over and start his presentation. And then what Michael's going to do, he's going to talk about the historic and institutional issues that's been holding us back in terms of education. Sherry's then is going to come forward and talking about initiatives that we can engage to make it better.
Thank you, Mr. Kirker. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I just want to start off by letting everyone know that being a native New Yorker, I'm very proud of our city. And one of the things that disheartens me is that for nearly 2 decades serving on the New York City School Board, we don't have parents there asking and demanding for quality education to be delivered to their children. Also want to mention that I need to be unapologetic about some of the things I'm going to share. And I don't believe that we can tiptoe around serious information that's going to be there to move our children forward. And so I'm going to start with a historical perspective. In this country, education was never designed to include us, and it was not for us. However, during the times of slavery, you had those courageous slaves who were not fearful of getting an education, because if it was something that was punishable by death, it had to be something that was very important. So they were teaching people how to read, and the first thing that they used, the first book they used to teach people was from the Bible. And just looking at that, it had to be something very powerful about education. Why did they not want the slaves, who they considered not be human beings, to be educated? Then as we go along that line, in 1954, we had Topeka versus the Board of Education, Brown versus the Board of Education in Kansas in 1954, where they made a constitutional decision to say that African Americans deserve the right to be educated. However, they wanted us educated in our own facilities. And they said they were going to be giving us separate but equal. We were separate and we were equal. And then when they forced integration, and I want to make this point, prior to integration, the African American community did a much better job at educating their own than when they integrated. When they integrated us, they found means to continue that separation. They had the leveling system that came about. And when you looked at the leveling system, they were putting the majority of our African American male students and our female students, and there were a few that they let rise to the top, but the majority of us, and the bulk of us, they put in special education. And education was a white European middle class concept that was never designed for us. At some point in time, there was a shift. We started demanding our civil rights in this nation. And there were a lot of initiatives, the bus boycott, which crippled that city because we were not utilizing that infrastructure. So everybody talked about that economic theme that runs through that, because our dollars are power.
That's right.
Our dollars are power. Underutilization of resources. Do you know that in our urban centers, we have so much money that the federal and local governments are putting in our schools, but yet our children are not getting the bulk of that money? They order textbooks in schools, but our children are allowed to take textbooks home. That's not the administration's decision, but these teachers feel that they have to covet these materials and keep these materials in their closets collecting dust, and then mimeograph and take copies for our children to take home.
Yes.
There's a lot of important information in that textbook that that child needs. And if a parent is trying to help their child, they cannot help their child if they can't give them the examples and everything else that comes within the textbook. Then we had the Empowerment Act, high stakes testing. All of these were means of the Republican Party to privatize our schools. After getting off of the school board in 2007, I was pushed back and afraid because I saw the direction it was going into. If we allow our schools to be privatized, and we have these Edison companies coming in to say that they're going to deliver our children a quality of education. They're making promises to our families and our children. They're going to get the computers and technology to go along with that. Till this date and time, I have never seen it happen. We have computers and technologies in our school. Those technologies do not go home. They're sitting on cards, and I'm a family therapist, and I service families throughout the county. And every single school district that I go into, those children have technology in their hand. They're taking computers home. They have access to the internet, and they have access to that education. In New York City School District, we keep our resources locked up. We keep them locked up. And for some of those people who served on the school board with me who are here, and those past and present, I continue to argue with the administration about how they're keeping our children locked down by not having them take advantage of this technology and resources that we put out there.
That's right.
And when we're in meetings, I'll tell the administration, I'm not going to apologize about anything that I say, because I see this as an intentional means of keeping our children locked down. When we get to disproportional discipline within our schools, I walk into a school building. Every school building I walk into, I see our young men, African American and Latino, sitting in the office areas being disruptive. And some of those folks that worked in the administration office, they could tell you, I'll immediately call down to the administration building and I'll say to the superintendent, we have a serious problem and we have to talk about this. Why are children, our young men especially, being put in the office? They're being locked out of that educational loop. If I'm sitting in the office, I can't get anything that you're trying to teach in the classroom because I'm not a present participant in what you're doing.
Right.
Our teachers have a means of continuing to push our kids out because that's a way of getting the principal bogged down with dealing with discipline as opposed to being that educational leader in that school and making certain that what they're asked to deliver is being delivered in those classrooms. They keep them tied down. Moving on also to talking about implicit bias. What is implicit bias? The number one thing that comes to mind for me is that you, first of all, don't believe that our children are capable of learning at the rate and the extent that some other children are. And when the child is disruptive, what I observed from working at an educational institution for 20 years is that our children are not challenged and they're not engaged in the classroom. And when you fail to engage children, they're going to find means of engaging themselves. So they're distracted, they're talking to one another. And a teacher, I happened to go into a classroom, and this is very personal. I went into my nephew's classroom when he was in 3rd grade. And she didn't know he was my nephew. But there was a white teacher that said to me, that young man there should be gifted. He should be in a gifted classroom. And so I asked her, well, why is it? He doesn't know how to sit still. He doesn't know how to do this. He doesn't know how to do that. I said, well, I make it different. Because I can tell you everything that he's capable of doing, because that's my nephew you're talking about. 2 weeks later, that woman was no longer working for the New York City School District. When we see these things happening, we have to take a stand as parents. Our children are being suspended and expelled at rates that are astronomical. When we look at our discipline data, and I always tell our superintendent, when you send us information, please give me numbers. Give me numbers. Why is it that all of our African American and Latino male students are being suspended or expelled? And then I go over to the programs that we send our children to. We have Cornerstone and we have Goodrich. And they're well-meaning folks in those programs. And for the most part, they're doing the best that they can with what they're given to work with. It's not about suspending our children. If our children are suspended from school, they're not in the classroom and they're not learning. Moving on to low expectations. Historically and research-wise, it shows that African American and male students, because of teacher fear, are not pushed and challenged in the classroom. And when you walk through any of our schools, you'll see a student that has an attitude and the teacher immediately just ignores that student until the student becomes very disruptive, and then they have that student put out of the classroom. Walking down the hallway, I'm not going to mention the school, we had a kindergarten student, and this we're moving into family engagement. A kindergarten student was laying in the hallway crying and going in circles on the floor. And as I walked past that group of people, there were 5 adults standing around this child, all are Caucasian. None of them stopped to talk to this young man to see what was going on with him. So I walked past him, went to a classroom, came back, intervened, and found out from that child what was going on. But as we get into the discussion, then there's some other parts and pieces that I want to get into. But there's just so much more. But I just implore this district, this city, to get involved in our educational system. Fight for our children. And these are the dollars that are coming in for them. And then we have those among us too who support this separation. And I'm not going to get into what those means are, but I'll leave that.